There isn't a long list of rookies that have reached the levels both Victor Wembanyama and Chet have been at this season, and as anticipated, it's made for a highly debated race for the Rookie of the Year award. We'll talk about how the rest of the rookies around the league have performed and how the all-rookie teams are shaping up a little over halfway through the season, but first we gotta tackle this race between Wemby and Chet. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made for both of them when you look at the entirety of their seasons to this point, but Victor has started to separate himself as of late and might be hitting some unprecedented levels of play. Only 6 players in the history of the NBA have ever averaged at least 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks for a season, and those names are Kareem, Bob Lanier, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem, David Robinson, and Shaq, who are all some of the greatest bigs to ever play, and as a rookie, Victor would become the 7th ever to do it, and also in at least 8 less minutes played per game. Speaking of, he's actually been on a minutes restriction for a good portion of the season due to an ankle injury, but it really hasn't mattered. As you saw, he doesn't even need 30 minutes to get a triple-double with blocks. He's somehow just been better than ever. Now, getting into some of the specifics of what he's done, one of the biggest things that's led to his ascent as a player is playing the 5 pretty much full time now. Like we mentioned with Chet in the last video, it just opens up so much for both him and his team. You got Wemby with the ability to take advantage of a lot of opposing bigs either off the dribble or as a floor spacer, and in every ball screen situation you get your best offensive player involved while also taking what's usually the primary rim protector away from the bucket, which is a difficult thing for a team to deal with. And I've been really impressed with how he's taken advantage of his size and countered to teams cross-matching and switching. Sometimes it is as simple as posting up, but for someone who's not great at that yet, the way he's able to move without the ball, pass and cut quickly, the way he times his dives to the rim, and then all that matched with his massive catch radius on lobs and just as a targeting close, makes having a smaller defender on him or relying on weak side help really tough no matter the personnel that's out there. It's also helped that Jeremy Sochan is no longer playing a role and position that he's never played in his life, and Trey Jones has gotten more of these opportunities, but the crazy thing is they can still do a better job of setting him up, and right now this looks like it could end up becoming the easiest source of offense in the league in about a year or two. Wemby's improvement as a passer has also been another big piece of his growth. He's reading doubles quicker and better by the game. He's initiated offense and even run pick and rolls at 7'5", and just his touch and feel shown through some of the no looks and different passes that he makes is ridiculous. And though he is still far from perfect and probably takes a few too many risks right now, his growth here has definitely been felt. And then you got all the other highlight worthy stuff that he does on a game-to-game basis. The alien level sham gods, him throwing it to himself off the glass or finishing at the bucket like he's in Space Jam on multiple occasions. It just doesn't make sense. He hasn't been very good as a jump shooter overall, but the fact that he's already at over 43% on off the dribble threes feels significant. He's already one of the most unique offensive players in league history. He's really just scratching the surface. Now all that stuff is great, we love it, but we haven't even mentioned his best attribute, and that is his defense, where he's been first team level good to me. We've kind of been spoiled recently with Evan Mobley, Chet Holmgren, and even Herb Jones entering the league as elite defenders, but what Wemby is doing here is special. He's got the highest ceiling and his impact has only grown as of late. He's currently leading the league in blocks with over 3 a game. He's one of the best at field goals defended at the rim at about 53%. He's a massive deterrent at the bucket. He's top 10 in both advanced metrics of defensive EPM and D-LeBron. And while the Spurs aren't a good defense overall by any means, they are 9 points better with him on the floor and go from a top 15 defense to what would be the worst defense in the history of the league with him off. And when the numbers are that staggering, it tells you most of what you need to know. Now there's still a ton for him to get better at. He's got to cut down on the turnovers and be more measured on some of his attacks. He's still been in the 20s on catch and shoot threes, which on one hand is definitely bad, but on the bright side, whenever he flirts with just like 30%, he's probably going to be an immediate top 15 player in the league off of that alone. And then the strength factor is huge in so many ways, and his perimeter defense can also be spotty, but he's already very good obviously, and those are the type of things that kind of help get him to the next level over these next few seasons. To sum it up, Wemby has rapidly progressed this season to become one of the league's most impactful players, and though there's still a lot of season left, his combination of box score numbers, improved advanced and efficiency stats, and the defensive value that he brings while also being an offensive number 1 gives him the edge for the award at the moment. Then you also have Chet. He's another 7-footer with some truly unique abilities and impact, and despite it not being as flashy as Victor can make it look, he's also one of the best rookies we've seen, and it shouldn't go unnoticed. In fact, even with a lot of the talk including winning in his argument for the award, he's been good enough that I think you can make his case without it. Right now he's at about 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2.5 blocks, and a true shooting percentage over 63, and a net rating over 9, which is far and away the highest of any rookie this year, and a mark that even Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, and Ben Simmons couldn't reach in their winning situations as rookies. And like we mentioned, he's a supreme defender himself. He's technically sound with terrific feel, he's fearless at the rim, one of the league's leaders in blocks, he allows opponents to shoot just 53% at the rim, he has a defensive EPM of 2, which is a good number itself, and he's been the missing element of what's been a strangely solid defense in the past that's now transformed into one of the league's 5 best with him as their anchor. He did slow down and had some low moments in about the last month, but he's still been really good offensively for the season. He's been very efficient from all over the court with near 50-40 splits, which is really good from a 7-footer who takes the type of shots that he does and also anchors your defense. He's put it on the floor, he served as a perfect catch and shoot option next to the likes of Shea and J-Dub, and he's also finished plays at the rim with his great touch at around 70% total. Now I did want to give my 2 cents on the winning piece of this kind of rookie of the year argument. I don't think it should necessarily be used when we're talking about rookies unless both rosters are close, because these guys usually get thrown to the worst teams in the league, and in this situation, Chet being injured for a year throws this off even more, but at the same time, I don't think he should necessarily be punished for that. Is he asked to do what Wemby does for the Spurs? No, but he's a top 2 or 3 player on one of the best teams in the league, doing everything he's asked, is an all-defense candidate and a great offensive piece, and that's all a huge achievement in itself. I like and appreciate what both are doing, and I think they're going to make the NBA a great product for years to come, but for me, right now, Wemby has a slight edge, though there's plenty of time for Chet to flip it back in his direction. Now let's move around the rest of the league, where we have plenty of other rookies who have made major contributions from the jump and shouldn't go unrecognized. The first being Charlotte's Brandon Miller, who has been one of the best rookies all year, but recently he's been ridiculous and looked like someone that would contend for the Rookie of the Year in a lot of other seasons. In his 6 games before that blowout against Milwaukee, Miller was averaging 28, 4, and 3 with 2 steals and a block, and shooting 42% on 9 threes a game, and flourishing in the opportunity to handle the ball and make more decisions than we've seen in the past. And in the process, he's gone toe-to-toe for stretches with the likes of LeBron, Jalen Brunson, and Siakam and Halliburton. And it hasn't just been that recent 6-game stretch. He's been at 18, 4, and 2 since early December, and his shooting has kept him effective on most nights, and that was a lot shakier early on in the season. He has been and is more of a secondary wing by nature, but I think it's flown under the radar just how special he's been as a shooter off the bounce. He's currently at nearly 48% on off the dribble jumpers, getting the step backs, turnarounds, pull-ups in the pick and roll, and excelling in the mid-range with a 48.8% mark there. And those are numbers that are rivaled by only the league's best like Kawhi and KD, of course, at a lower volume right now. And the thing to me that is really encouraging is there's still so much for him to get better at. I think his maturation physically is ultimately going to decide just the level he reaches as a player, because he is still a little bit behind there, and it really shows up on drives and just being able to create separation, especially without a ball screen. And he's also still at only 50% at the rim in the half court, which is something we harped on during the draft last year. And then defensively, I do like the added versatility he's shown in some of the effort, especially early on in the season, but he can be a lot more consistent in every way, though I don't really care too much given his current situation. But for the most part, Brandon Miller has looked like every bit of a future star, and if he keeps it up, Charlotte makes the proper moves in the next year or so, and they get LaMelo fully healthy, they could have something a little quicker than we might think.
Let's see if I can get away with one. Woo, how'd that pass get through?
Jaime Jaquez has struggled quite a bit since suffering a groin injury in January, but prior to that he had pretty obviously separated himself as one of the 3 best performing rookies, averaging 16, 4, and 3 in his previous 31 games before going down. He's been allowed to play his game as a wing/forward playmaker, doing everything from running pick and roll to given the opportunity to show his footwork and even post up, and was much better than I expected defensively and as a shooter before getting a little bit more spotty as of late. I do think part of his issues since the injury have come from integrating Terry Rozier, and that's putting Jaime in a different role that he's not accustomed to, but I'd guess he figures it out if he can get his shot together first and foremost, and they're going to need it with the direction this team has been trending over the last month. It's honestly hard to overstate the type of immediate impact Dereck Lively has had this year, and while it might not always result in the most gaudy stat lines, his presence is felt on a nightly basis. He recently suffered a broken nose that required surgery, so hopefully that doesn't derail anything that he's had going, because he's been great. He's provided Dallas with the exact center that they've been clamoring for years, and an effective rim protector and live body with size. He's top 15 in blocks per game. He grades out among the best in rim deterrence, and despite the team being bad defensively overall, they're at least about 4 points better when he's on the court according to Cleaningtheglass, which is essentially the difference between a middle of the pack defense and a bottom 5 one. Offensively, he's also a worthy play finisher and pick and roll partner with a top 5 true shooting percentage in the league and the obvious attributes to finish lobs above the rim. And I've continued to be impressed by the passing flashes he's shown and some of the skill development in him as a finisher away from the rim. Now, I'll be curious to see the direction that they go down the stretch, especially into the playoffs with Daniel Gafford now in the mix, but Lively's been an important piece to this team and far ahead of schedule as a rookie, and he continues to get better by the month. It's been somewhat out of necessity, but Brandon Podziemski has been the rare Warriors rookie to force Steve Kerr's hand for minutes and been super productive in them, and since he's gotten the opportunity earlier in the season, he's easily been one of the best performers in this class and a serious first team contender. He's the do-it-all Swiss Army knife type of guard for this team. He makes plays in a lot of ways, whether it's running the show on some nights, taking care of the ball, getting on the glass, which he's continued to be great at since college, being a sound team defender, second in charges only to Jalen Brunson and making plays on a consistent basis, or scoring well around the rim in multiple ways. He's really just what everyone means when you say someone's a good basketball player. Now, there is still a lot that he can improve at. He's actually been ice cold as a shooter for the last month, shooting under 20% from 3, but earlier in the year you could count on him to knock him down. The good thing is it hasn't kept him from being effective or making a positive impact. When you're second in net rating behind Chet Holmgren but on a below 500 team, and putting up 3 straight double-doubles at that size, twice with rebounds, once with assists, and making big plays down the stretch of games, you're doing a whole lot right, and I expect that to continue. It's been interesting to watch Keyonte George figure things out as an NBA guard. He's constantly trying to find this balance between setting up his teammates and taking care of the ball, while also figuring out how to be aggressive and that dynamic scoring presence we know he can be. And naturally, in the process, he's had his share of rough moments, but he's made progress and is starting to play the most efficient basketball of his young career. The biggest takeaway from this season, and really just the last several months, even going back to Summer League, is just the growth he's shown as a passer. Now again, he's had his ups and downs, and I think Jazz fans will let you know that, but he's honed in on the previous flashes he showed, and it's been needed given the skill sets that have been in this backcourt. Now, long term, I think his growth from being one of the worst finishers in the league at 40% in the half court and just his consistency as a shooter is going to be key to whether or not he is Utah's lead man of the future, but for now, he's got an all-rookie spot for me, and I almost guarantee he's going to have a couple of star-level nights post-All-Star break that'll get everybody's attention. Ausar Thompson seeing his role in minutes diminish for long stretches after the type of start that he had to the season, I would argue has been one of the worst parts of this Pistons season. Now, he's not a perfect player by any means. There's a lot of difficulty in playing someone that defenses don't even look at behind the three-point line, but the lack of creativity in maximizing your 5th pick and the alternatives that they had gone with instead of him at times was really concerning. But getting back positive, Ausar is an already high-level wing defender, a useful rebounder, and has the tools to make plays as a connective piece in a lot of ways. I'm hoping they do continue to mix it up and get him involved as a screener, let him play the 4, and set up opportunities for him as a cutter and mover, because when he has been out there, to me, he's been an all-rookie caliber player.
With a rebound, brings it to forecourt. Nice deep bounce to Ausar Thompson.
Scoot Henderson got off to an objectively bad start to his career and got injured shortly after, but he slowly but surely started to figure things out. And while he hasn't necessarily been good, especially by NBA standards, when you're averaging about 14, 3, and 5 and shooting 37% from 3 in the last 30-ish games, you're at least on the right track and have probably done enough to be considered for one of these spots. Now, he's got to improve at the rim in a huge way. He's got to take better care of the ball and figure things out as a decision maker and not always live with what the defense is giving him for a reason. But when you look at the game he had against Philly, going for 22 in 22 minutes, or the 30 against Denver, 22 and 11 versus the Spurs, you see a lot of the potential that we talked about coming in. So he gets a spot here, and hopefully we can see him healthy down the stretch and continue to show signs of improvement for what's been an overall up and down start given the expectations.
I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more of those.
Cason Wallace might not have the stat lines that compete with a lot of the other rookies, and he has taken a bit of a dip recently, but he's been a vital contributor for a winning Thunder team the entire season, and I do think that's significant. He's kind of hard to rank because of that. There are other players who just have better numbers or have peaked much higher than he has, but they might have spent time in the G League or just recently had stretches of positive play, so there is a chance that he could get bumped by April, but for now, he's been all you can ask from a secondary guard that defends at a really high level, knocks down threes, and can make plays on the nights you need them. And then it was really tough to leave off Cam Whitmore because he's been on fire since getting real time in January. He's put up 13 and 5, shooting 40% on 5 threes a night in just 20 minutes. And though he's still got mountains to climb as a decision maker and defensively, he's made a positive impact off the bench. And if he comes back from the ankle injury on the same run, he might be a lock for one of these teams. And then Jordan Hawkins was another guy that has had some crazy peaks when he's been given the opportunity, but the Pelicans just have so many bodies. He spent time in the G League and just been completely out of the rotation at times, especially as of late, but you can make a clear case for him too. This is where my rookie ladder is at right now. I had Wemby as the rookie of the year in the first update, but for the next 20-ish games, I would have had Chet, but I think Wemby is pretty clearly about to run away with it with the way that he's playing. After that, Brandon Miller has separated himself as number 3, and then I guess the next 2 spots get split between Jaime Jaquez, Derek Lively, and Brandon Podziemski. You can kind of pick your poison there. Once we get to 7 on the second team, it's pretty much a free-for-all, especially with those who aren't on here starting to emerge in a big way. We mentioned Cam Whitmore and Jordan Hawkins in their cases, but Amen Thompson has been doing numbers as the starter with Fred VanVleet out. He just put up an 8 point, 13 rebound, 5 assists, 5 steals stat line, and I don't think there's any reason that he can't get on here. Bilal Coulibaly has been great at various points in the season, and he still has a ton of upside. Gigi Jackson has somehow been better in the NBA than he was in the G League earlier this year, and while he still had his share of down moments, he's put together some wild games as a scorer considering his age and path to the league. Anthony Black has made a contribution on a playoff team for most of the season. You've got Marcus Sasser, who has started to re-emerge after being a non-factor for 2 months, and he might get back in the mix if he can continue what he's been doing recently. Toumani Camara and Duop Reith have been Portland's best rookies for stretches on the year. And then you have guys like Trace Jackson Davis and Grady Dick really starting to get going, and others like Ben Shepherd, Jalen Wilson, Nick Smith Jr., and even Trey Jemison and Taylor Hendricks all starting to have moments too. So while I do think the players on the last few second team spots do deserve it right now, there's still a ton of time left for others to swing that. There's usually about 2 players a year that you feel like had a shot at the second team or you'd consider snubs, but there might be like 4 or 5 this year, which is a testament to this class, but does make this a little more difficult to do than usual. But if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and leave a comment down below of which direction you'd go in the Chet versus Wemby debate, and also what your all-rookie teams would look like at this point in the season. As always, I'm Keandre, this is HoopIntellect. Until next time, I'm out.